This is the PR Podcast, a show about how public relations helps you tell your story to the world. We talk with great PR practitioners who have the skills, creativity, and just plain savvy to get their clients noticed. Now here's your host, Jody Fisher.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the PR Podcast. I'm Jody Fisher. Thanks for joining us. Well, don't forget to send us your PR Podcast plug. This is a way that you can promote yourself. And I joke around that as PR people, we're great at promoting our clients and we're horrible at promoting ourselves. At least I am. So this is a turnkey way to share something cool that you have done out there that's not a client hit, right? It's not your 9 to 5, like we say. Maybe you won an award. Maybe you've got a podcast. Maybe you got a cool TikTok channel. Maybe you are a chef, or you wrote a book, or something interesting about you that we want to love on you for. So send us a note, a DM to the PR Podcast on any of the socials is fine. Or you can DM me at Jody Fisher. Either way, pick your pleasure. But send us something that we can celebrate you for. We'll get you a PR Podcast plug at the top of an upcoming episode. Now on with our show today, we've got a kindred spirit. Michael Stern is the founder and CEO of HeadStart, a PR agency focused on the innovation ecosystem. Started just 3 years ago after a career in news. Michael says he made the leap because he thought startups had some great stories to tell and not enough agencies were focused on their needs. An entrepreneur at heart, his vision and belief is in the power of storytelling and rewriting the rules for mission-driven companies everywhere. Michael, welcome to the PR Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to talk to a fellow former newser turned coming to the dark side, if you will.
There you go. Well, we have cookies over here, right? So
Exactly.
Tell us about, although there are cookies in the news, there are always cookies in the newsroom. But tell us how, give us your background as a journalist first. Where did you get started?
Well, if you asked my parents, I got started in fourth grade when I started a school newspaper in fourth grade. In reality, I got the journalism bug, I would say, really in high school, reporting for a high school radio station, doing sports broadcasting. Got my first internship even before college at a small AM radio station in Pennsylvania. And, I just loved it. I love being able to tell stories in the community and really, make a difference with journalism. So I went to University of Maryland, pretty much did it all. I ran production at the TV station. I was a reporter for Capital News Service there, which is their news bureau. I interned at CNN and WTOP, and out of college I went into producing because I think I have a face for behind the camera or a face for radio, and went into producing and went down to Richmond, where I was producer and then executive producer for the morning show there, which was fantastic, except for the waking up at 2 a.m. every single day, and that's kind of what led me to the lifestyle switch and going to the dark side.
There you go. A very similar path and very similar experience that you and I have had. And I have one of those faces built for radio as well. Although I disagree with you. I think you'd look great on camera.
Well, thank you.
Nevertheless, let's talk about the foundation that gives you to pivot into a career in PR. What do you think the skills are that you built being in the news business that you carry over now to your PR journey?
I think the biggest thing is you learn how to tell a good story. Starting from when that first broadcast class that you take right in college is broadcast writing, and the first rule they tell you is tell the story and write the story as if you're talking to your mom, right? And that's just something that they don't teach you in normal academia. It's how can I fill up this 20-page paper? And that's a lot of the same in writing for PR, especially for talking to media, right? You have 5 sentences to catch a reporter's attention. You have to tell a fantastic story in, honestly, the time it takes to write a 20-second VO or 20-second voiceover in broadcast. And so I think that those storytelling skills and that writing set me up and set other former journalists up for success in PR. The other element is, I think that folks who start off in news know what reporters and producers are looking for. And so we're able to advise our clients what will actually make the news versus what probably is a good LinkedIn post, or hey, no, I know that you think that small nonprofit partnership isn't a big deal, but in reality, that's a really big deal. And always looking out for those stories, always looking out for those opportunities that make a difference in your clients and then the people that they serve and their lives. That's a skill that I think I really learned and honed in journalism. That if I just dove into PR right from the start, I don't think you get that same, life experience as you get in a newsroom, figuring out how to tell a story in a certain way.
Yeah, I could not agree more. And that's kind of where the bifurcation, ooh, big SAT word, comes with PR people. You can tell the folks who have been in the news business who have then transitioned over. And there are thousands of us, right? We are not unicorns by any stretch. Versus the folks who were formally educated in the practice and craft of public relations and how to properly write a news release or X, Y, or Z. We are kind of, at least my personality is, I'm a cowboy. I'm a Han Solo, get it done first, ask questions later kind of guy. And that's the attitude I think that prevails inside the newsrooms and with the field reporters who are out covering the stories. They want to know what the story is right away in 2 sentences, like you said. Tell me why it's important. Tell me why my audience is going to like it. Great, I'll do it. Or no, I can't do it today, or maybe I'll do it next week, right?
I think it also helps us treat the folks on the media side as if they're humans, as if they're people. I feel like too often in our industry, we're treating them just as a means to an end. But having been in the newsroom, these are our friends. These are our peers. These are our colleagues. We know that they get 1,000 pitches into their inbox every single day because I got 1,000 pitches into my inbox every day. So I'm not going to send a pitch just for the sake of it. I'm not going to just bombard these reporters every time I have news. I'm going to treat them like humans. I'm going to congratulate them on their job updates. I'm going to call out if I read a good story that they wrote with no additional expectation of coverage. Treating them like humans is just, the name of the game in PR, and I don't think that's you can't teach that. You can't teach that in school. You can't teach that in academia. It's just something that you learn from honestly going to battle with these journalists every single day when you're in the newsroom.
That is so true. And speaking of the human side of the media, we have had a front row seat, at least I have here in New York, and you have too. And I think this is something that's happened nationwide with media layoffs, and specifically media layoffs in local markets, at daily newspapers, at local radio stations, at local TV stations. What is the impact of that on, and I don't want this to sound like a selfish question, but what is the impact of that on what we do for our clients on a daily basis and to the larger news ecosystem, the information sharing ecosystem from your perspective?
Yeah, I want to start with the second part of that question because I always, whenever I see layoffs, whether it be local, whether it's national, I go through kind of the same cycle. The first thing that hits me is disappointment and sadness for what this means for that local market or what this means for society, right? There is just an incredible amount of disinformation every single day on every topic in every market. And every time a small local, even a local weekly shuts down, that is a city hall that's not having any checks and balances, right? That's a state house that has one fewer reporter looking into where our tax dollars are going, right? That's another one fewer news radio station that's on the air for drive time radio, and instead, what's filling the void is a lot of misinformation. So I think a lot of the problems that we see in all of society, and not just in the U.S., worldwide, comes because there are fewer reporters covering way more news and way more disinformation with lower trust in journalism. And so every time there's a layoff or every time an outlet shuts down, it's just another wave of sadness and disappointment for our friends in the media. Now, the selfish part of it hits me second, which is, oh man, that's going to make our job a little bit that much harder, right? There, at the same time as all of these media layoffs, there have never been this many PR agencies, PR consultants, PR freelancers, ever. And that means our competition for getting our clients' stories out there to fewer reporters is incredibly high. And so it already is so difficult. There are fewer and fewer, for instance, trade publications. And so when there's layoffs at trade publications, it means they maybe cut their number of reporters in half. So you have 1,000 PR people going after 2 reporters to place their story about some fundraise or some new product or whatever it might be. And so a lot of it, what that means is we have to do client education about how to tell their story without relying on the gatekeepers, how to really own their owned media channels so that they can make sure they get what they want to get out there. And then also it means for us, we have to be more creative about how we tell the stories. We have to give reporters what they need in as little time as possible. And we don't have the time to throw stuff at a wall and see what sticks. We have to be nimble. We can't spend a month on a pitch because it's gonna harm our clients. At a certain point, you have to be able to be nimble, shift to a different angle, and just accept that a reporter doesn't like the one story that you're pitching, so maybe there's a different story that they will like. And before, when newsrooms were full and there were outlets everywhere, chances are you're gonna find someone to run whatever story that you wanted. That's just not the case anymore.
Yeah, I'm so glad you pointed out the sort of the metrics of that. The fact that, there are literally 1,000 PR people like you and me going after a handful of reporters, and that there's more drag on the inbox. There's more drag on the reporter's time than ever before. And so we need to be as good as our jobs as we can possibly be. And part of that becomes looking out for the reporter's interests, knowing that what we're sending them is relevant right out of the gate, whether or not, and they choose to cover it or not, but obviously not spamming them. I mean, I've never sent a mass email, I think, in my career. One at a time emails only to the reporters that make sense. And literally, I'd almost rather sometimes get an email from a reporter saying, hey, you didn't send me that thing. And I'll respond and I'll say, I didn't think it was relevant for you. And they're like, no, send it to me. Great, terrific. I'd almost rather get that than get the, oh, here he comes again with another useless, email, right?
I agree. And I think that on the email element and having fewer reporters, I think the other element that we haven't talked about yet that is making our jobs difficult that people don't think about is the number of, let's call them AI tools, or quote unquote, because this is an audio medium, quote AI tools that say we can make PR easier, when in reality they are just automating mass emails to reporters. And then
Exactly.
Our entire industry gets a bad name, the good PR people get a bad name, and it makes our job so much more difficult. And so not only are there more PR people, but they're inexperienced, so they think these tools really make a difference, when in reality treating them like people and not like names on a spreadsheet is how you make a difference in PR. And the folks who are sending those mass emails, those let's just blast it to everyone in Cision, let's just blast it to everyone in Muckrack, are doing us a disservice.
And they're doing themselves a disservice too, because really, when you get that kind of stuff, your brain, as a reporter, your brain registers it. And it's like, oh, here comes this guy again. Here comes this company again. And that's the kiss of death, right? For the clients is, here comes this company again. Let's pivot our conversation into what you do for startups, which is probably the hardest kind of client to work for, because they're unknown, because they're not a proven name. It's easy to get publicity for Apple and their new iPhone, right? It's easy for, Coke or NFL or you name it, Taylor Swift. It's really hard to get publicity for a company that is not only unknown, but someone might say, well, that kind of sounds like that other thing, right? How do you go about publicity for your startup clients?
It definitely makes it harder, right? You don't have the name ID, you don't have the clout. So starting with publicity and starting with earned media, let's put aside the, hey, we raised $15 million, because that's the one time that you really have a big news event as a startup. You're gonna get coverage for it as long as your agency is doing the right thing. And so that's where we're getting your startup and your client placed in the media is easy. Where it's hard is, what about all that time in between news events, right? You're not raising $15 million every day, but you want to stay in the conversation. And so it's leveraging partnerships that your client might have, or leveraging, specific client stories or specific customer stories. Maybe they changed someone's life in Texas and you can go local. Maybe it's going more on the podcast route so that they have fodder for social media. But the second thing is educating our clients that it's not all about profiles of your green tech company. It's also about the thought leadership side. You started this company because you know this industry, hopefully, or at least someone in your company knows this industry. And so explaining the importance and the benefits of thought leadership, of getting quoted alongside their peers, because sometimes if they have something smart to say or interesting to say, that can be a lower barrier to entry than please do this feature about our product launch, because that story is not being written. But the story about, we do a lot of work with future of work clients. So the story of the Friday jobs report coming out and what it means is going to be written every week. So let's say something interesting about it that other people aren't saying, and you can get your small startup mentioned alongside the likes of, the chair of the Federal Reserve in Philly or whatever it might be. And so, and that really does move the needle, not just in direct to, your target customer, not to direct to consumer, but also building the trust in your company, to have someone look at you and say, oh, they know what they're talking about because, Newsweek talked to them, CNN talked to them. We trust them because of that. What people don't realize and what startups don't realize when they first look at PR is that a placement doesn't immediately get you 1,000 customers. That doesn't happen. Think about our daily lives, right? When, I own a pair of Allbirds, right? It took so much inundation between earned media and paid media for me to say, okay, maybe I'll try Allbirds. No one makes a purchase on the first time they see something. However, every single one of those earned media placements are chipping away to convert to a sale. And so startups, getting them in that thought leadership conversation and then allowing them to promote those pieces across all marketing collateral, is how they really spread the word and build this movement to their product. It's slow and steady, as opposed to Apple, who can just call up the tech reporter at the New York Times and get a story placed.
But here's great points and agreed on all, but there is the proof of it, right? Apple today didn't start as Apple today, right? They started as a startup in a garage in Palo Alto or somewhere. Talk about how you talk to your startup clients and saying, clients will sit down across the table from us and say, I want to be in the New York Times. I want to be in the Wall Street Journal, fill in the blank of your ego-driven media hit. How do you talk to them about that chipping away philosophy? I call it the walk-up method, but I think we're talking about the same thing. How do you talk up to them about how you get started with getting publicity that gets them to the place they want to be at?
Yeah, so the analogy I use in, say, talking to potential clients, business development, is that it's like you're making a snowman, but you have to start at the top of the mountain to make the snowman, and you have to roll that snowball down the hill, right? And so when I start out, I make it clear that you're going to be on small podcasts, you're going to be in small local publications, and then you'll graduate to trade publications, and outside of like your big news event, and then slowly people are going to start seeing your name, right? The labor reporter at the maybe the Wall Street Journal will read the trade publication because that's the newsletter they get in their inbox every single day. Media begets media begets media, and so I explain that, but I also say, look, a podcast that has 2,000 listeners, a YouTube stream that gets 500 viewers. If those 500 viewers are your target audience, then that is a great media opportunity, especially when you're starting out with PR. And so, and additionally, the podcast that has 2,000 listeners, if their branding is good, no one knows how many listeners they have. So post that on your social media, man, and they will think, oh, these guys are bigger than they are. And so it's helping them sell those smaller media opportunities, these smaller wins, and helping them understand that you're not getting New York Times on day one. And honestly, I don't know if you experience this too. There have been clients when I have gotten a huge hit in the first week, and while I'm excited that I got that, in the back of my mind there's the little voice like, oh no, they're gonna expect this every single media hit, and immediately you have to educate them, being like, this is great, it's uncommon, it's not gonna happen, and inevitably they're gonna say in a few weeks, well, where's my CNN? It just always happens.
Or can we call that reporter again?
Yeah,
yeah. Right? Can
Yeah.
we have them do another story on us? Like, time out.
Exactly.
That's so great. We are totally on the same page here. So when should a startup start thinking about PR? I know the answer you're going to give, but I want to hear the why and the how that comes with it.
Okay, so I'm gonna start with when should a startup consider outside PR help, and that is when it doesn't damage their runway. I know it's not a moment in time for like a news story, but too often have I worked with a startup that they had to kill their PR campaign before it got off the ground because they didn't have the financial resources to actually devote to a PR campaign. And so typically what that looks like is when they're about to announce their Series A raise, and then they come to us or another agency around then because they have money in the bank, and then they have time and runway that they can devote to PR. When it's actually a story, I would say is when they have real traction. When they should bring on outside help is when they have real traction and product market fit, a real business model, good if they're B2B, good partnerships who are willing to do some sort of joint media, even if it's social media announcements. So case studies are huge. All of those elements are required in order to have a successful PR campaign, whether that's telling your company story or whether that is thought leadership. However, I think founders should be doing PR for themselves from day one. I'm a mentor for a number of different accelerators, and the talk I always give is how to get PR for yourself. On day one, when you have a back of the napkin idea, look at who's in that space, look at who's covering those companies, and there is nothing saying that you can't reach out to 5 reporters saying, hey, I saw you covered X company, and I thought you might be interested in what I'm building. Worst thing that happens is they don't reply. But best thing that happens is they say, that's really interesting. Let me know when you launch or something like that. Or when you are back of the napkin idea, you might be in a small market and can get some good local news coverage right off the bat. And that does really make a difference. I don't think you should pay someone externally to do it, but I do think that you should be starting to do a little bit of professional development to say, what can I do on my own to build the hype around my company until I can farm this off to an external firm.
I love that. And I love that advice because you're so right. Everybody is their own storyteller. Everybody can be doing some level of promoting themselves. It's when it reaches a certain point where you need to turn to a professional like us and say, all right, now we're ready to burn. Now we're ready to go. Let's make this happen.
Exactly. Exactly.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Michael, I know we could go for a very long time together because we agree on so much. We are going to pivot now, however, into the rapid fire question portion of our podcast. This is where we steal a page from inside the actor's studio. It's a Gen X reference, I know. I probably have to update it, but I know, Michael, you get it. You're a young guy, but I know you get it. We ask our guests a series of rapid fire questions meant to elicit a simple answer, maybe a laugh or two. With your indulgence, Michael Stern, let's begin with rapid fire question number 1. What's your favorite news source?
Nationally and also locally for me, I'd say Washington Post. I still have my heart is still in local, so I really like what Axios does with their local newsletters. They also provide really good national and political coverage.
Excellent choices. Rapid fire question number 2. What's your favorite social media platform?
I would say LinkedIn. I'm not someone who has gotten into TikTok, and I only watch Instagram Reels when my wife sends them to me and then holds me down and says, watch this. This is funny.
Very good. Very good. Rapid fire question number 3. Coffee or alcohol?
Depends how tough my day's going. No, I'm kidding. For me, it's coffee. I can't start my day without a good hot cup of coffee.
Sounds like a newsroom man to me. Rapid fire question number 4. What's your favorite on the run food?
I guess I can't answer coffee for this one as well. So I'll say some sort of baked good from Panera. I have their sip club, so I always run in, get a coffee, and then some sort of muffin or something to just scarf down while I'm on the run.
That works. Rapid fire question number 5. What do you want to be after you finish this career?
I'm gonna say a traveler. My wife and I love to travel. I'm not gonna go the career route because I can't picture that. So just I think that I'll want to spend some time traveling as much as possible.
Love this. You got a number 1 destination on the list?
Um, I think that the number one is we want to do Australia and New Zealand. We've never done that. We just got back from France, Spain, and Italy, and so it's hard to think past the fact that I just got back from Europe. But I think that Australia is really high up there.
Sounds like a good one. Michael, this has been a great conversation. Please let people know how they can find you online.
Of course. So our website is www.weareheadstart.com. Connect with me on LinkedIn. It's easy. It's Michael S. Stern on LinkedIn. Or just shoot me an email. My inbox is always open. Michael@weareheadstart.com. Always happy to have a conversation with anyone about their PR, communications, marketing strategy, or just about Philadelphia sports, because I can talk about that for hours.
Oh, we'll have to have you back then, Michael. Thank you so much. We'll put the links in the show notes, and we'll say thank you to everyone for listening as well. Please remember to subscribe to the show. Connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at the PR Podcast, and send us a question or a comment. Our intro is by Christopher Apple. You can find him and his fantastic photography on Instagram at Christopher_APPOLDT. Check him out there and hire him for all your photography needs. You can find me online at Jody Fisher on all the socials and on the web at jodyfisherpr.com. We'll see you next time on the PR Podcast.